We bought our dual motor long range Model Y just a month ago in December of 2020. The total cost with enhanced autopilot and a tow hitch was $61,000. Should we have waited for the new single motor version that's a whopping $8,000 less? And also, why did Tesla release this new model now? Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So as you might know, Tesla just announced a new standard range single motor Model Y for right under $42,000 US. This is a full $8,000 less than the lowest priced Model Y 2 days ago. The car has only one motor and obviously a smaller battery pack, which I'm assuming is the same size as the Model 3 standard range Plus. Did we blow it buying our Model Y last month? And also, why did Tesla decide now was the time to release this product? Let's think about this. First, of course, neither we nor the people at the Tesla showroom, at least if you can believe them, knew that a single motor version was coming out anytime soon. We asked Joe several times about this during the sales process. At the time, we thought it would be a long-range single motor Model Y that would actually have more range than what our car has, and more on that in a little bit. Joe said the showrooms usually have about 6 weeks notice about new vehicle models, and at the time, in November, they did not know anything about it. Of course, they might have found out just after we ordered the car in November, but it seems like this new Model Y kind of came out of left field for everybody, so I'm not sure people in the showroom had much, if any, foreknowledge of it either. So at the time, we bought the least expensive Model Y, and such is life. You buy what you want when you buy it, and you're satisfied with it, right? But what if we'd ordered the dual motor version for $50,000 last week and we were waiting for our car to be delivered now? What should we do in that case? Should we hold with the more expensive model or save money? First, specifically, what are the differences? The new single motor Model Y has, a single motor. Shocking, right? It has a 0 to 60 rating of 5.3 seconds. It has an EPA estimated range of 244 miles, and it has a top speed of 135 miles per hour. But really, I guess in the United States, maybe in Europe that matters, but in the US you can't get anywhere close to that anyway. The dual motor long range, on the other hand, has two motors. It has a 0 to 60 mile per hour of 4.8 seconds, an EPA estimated range of 326 miles, and also a top speed of 135 miles per hour. And of course, since it's dual motor, it is all-wheel drive. So the main differences are a half-second faster acceleration to 60 miles an hour, all-wheel drive, which could be very important if you live somewhere that can be icy or snowy for part of the year, or plan to take your very expensive SUV out off-roading somewhere. And the biggest difference, in my book, the range. There's 82 miles or around 130 kilometers less range in this new version, but the new version is a ton cheaper, around 16% cheaper depending on what options you buy with it. Let's get a bit more specific here. We put down around $25,000 for the car, and we're paying around $620 per month for the next 72 months to pay off our Model Y. Using an auto loan calculator with as close numbers as I can figure, we would pay about $493 a month for this new version with the same options that we bought. That's a savings of around $127 per month for the car, or $9,180 over the 6 years of the loan. So yeah, that's a pretty huge savings. What do we give up for that? Notably, we don't give up a very big thing we would have had to give up with our potential Model 3 purchase, the full premium package. This was honestly a big sticking point for me. We purchased the standard range Plus Model 3 originally, which you can watch all about here, but only getting the partial premium package was not great. The sound system is dialed down, seats and mats and such are not as good, and you don't get a year of full connectivity included, so that ends up being about $120 you have to pay the first year to be connected to the Tesla mothership. Also, the charging speed is a lot lower too, and that makes a big difference for trips. So for me personally, I wasn't thrilled about the sound quality, especially. I love my quality sound systems, and the Tesla has one of the best I've ever heard. So this is very nice that the standard range Model Y has the full premium package included. Good work on that, Tesla. Now you need to fix that for the Model 3 also. As the specs showed, you do, however, lose about a half a second of acceleration to 60 miles an hour from a standstill. I have to say, I love the crazy feeling of accelerating away from everybody else at a stoplight, and completely silently too. It brings a smile to my face every single time. Would I notice the half-second difference? Yes. In fact, I've honestly considered eventually upgrading to the faster acceleration option, which is around $2,000. We'll just have to wait and see. And of course, if money was no object, I'd have bought the performance version. I love to drive sports cars. It's just me. What can I say? So the acceleration thing is a personal taste issue. Do you care about accelerating fast? How much is that worth to you? Then there's the all-wheel drive aspect. As we live in Georgia, and I'm not by any means taking this very expensive car off-roading, I'm waiting for the Cybertruck for that fun, it is very rare that this will be a feature that we will care about here. In our one winter driving experience, which you can see up here when we went to Asheville, I definitely noticed the all-wheel drive in the car worked flawlessly and the car drove fantastic on ice. So this one is based on your intended use and where you live. Do you live in a cold climate where you'll deal with ice and snow a lot, or will you take this off-roading a lot? Then all-wheel drive is very important to you. If you live in like Southern California or Florida or somewhere like that and won't be driving off-road, then this is really an unimportant feature. In a moment, let's discuss the elephant in the room, the range. But first, if you enjoyed this episode, definitely like it so other people can find it. It definitely helps. And also subscribe for more of these as well. Also, a big shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You all are wonderful. We've actually had some really interesting discussions on Discord recently about this very issue. I'd also like to welcome 2 new patrons. Actually 3, because 2 of them are together. One is Glenn Cook. Hey, it's good to see you. And also Ann and Mike Rouse. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the team. Also, a big thank you to Zenly Music for doing the intro and conclusion music. He's a great artist. You can check him out on YouTube and Instagram. And of course, if you're in the market for a new Tesla, definitely check out our referral link. If you click that, we both get 1,000 free supercharger miles, which is awesome. And finally, we are now Amazon affiliates, so definitely check out the link in the description. If you click that link, anything you buy in the next few hours actually helps us out just a little bit with a commission. Doesn't cost you anything but a moment to just click on it, so thank you. All right, batteries. For daily use, anything will work range-wise. But in just 2 medium-range trips, it's become extremely obvious to us that even 326 miles of range, or around 520 kilometers, is stressful. With the Model 3, this wasn't going to be such an issue. We were replacing our city or shorter trip car, our Mini Cooper, so the plan was never to take this on very long road trips, but to use it more locally. With the Model Y, however, this is an SUV. It's a family long trip road car. I mean, that's kind of the point of these bigger cars, right? So range is a much bigger issue for this car than for the Model 3. And of course, this new Model Y gets about 20 miles less range than the standard range plus Model 3 as well. For daily use, I have the car set to charge up to around 240 miles, which is around 75% of the max capacity. This, of course, keeps the battery from overcycling, so it's good to do this normally. With the new car, that same 75% would only get me to around 183 miles. This would still be fine for most of the time, but it is a whole lot less. My daily driving battery level is the other car's max capacity, so that's a consideration for sure. And then there's battery degradation. Over 5 years or so, one could expect about a 15% battery capacity decline, most of this in the first year or two. That brings the long-range Model Y to around 277 miles eventually. The standard range Model Y would only get to around 183 miles after that period of time. Yikes. And don't forget charging speed. If the Model Y standard range is similar to the Model 3 standard range plus, then it's going to charge slower than the long range does. And that can matter for trips too, as you're stuck waiting longer for the car to charge, and you don't get as far before you have to make the charging as well. If your plan is only to use the car for local, short-range trips with a very occasional road trip that goes by populated areas, and thus there are many charging stations, then the standard range should be fine. If, on the other hand, you plan to drive long distances a lot and or don't have access to a lot of superchargers on your route, then the standard range Model Y is a much tougher sell. If I personally was ordering the car today and after having driven my Model Y for a month and feeling range anxiety in a pretty big way once, I don't believe I'd be able to get through that issue, even with the massive savings the single motor version has. Let's also back up for just a minute and consider why Tesla likely released this Model Y version. I think it's for 2 reasons. Number 1 is the batteries, and number 2 is to compete with the new cars from the likes of Volkswagen, like the ID4 and the Ford Mach-E, and of course other companies as well. I think Tesla has had this model available for a long time, perhaps as long as the Model Y has been around. It's basically the Model Y version of the $37,000 standard range plus Model 3. You take out one motor, you use the smaller battery pack the Model 3 uses, and voila, you've got a new car. Number 1, this really reduces battery strain for Tesla, both in China and the US, and Germany eventually, where this range Model Y will, I'm sure, be the best seller by far, in my opinion at least. This car uses about 17% fewer batteries than the long range. That means that for every 5 or so standard range models they produce, they get a free battery pack for another standard range model. That's a pretty big deal for Tesla, as they are and will be battery constrained for a long time. And second, this price drop puts the smackdown on Volkswagen, Ford, NIO, and anybody else coming out with mid-range SUV type electric cars. Rather than having to think to yourself, do I spend more on a Tesla or save money and get this ID4, for example? Consumers can now say, which one do I want for about the same price? A Tesla or a VW or a Ford? Ouch, that has got to hurt the other companies. I think clearly with the Mach-E coming out and looking at the prices, and there's a whole bunch of prices for the Mach-E, but for around that $42,000 range, the Tesla standard range just blows away the Mach-E. So clearly the timing, and also I think the secrecy of this move was designed to directly hurt the other EV cars that are just now coming to market. And that's why this car was not released until now. I think they were waiting for the other cars to come out, and basically they were going to steal their thunder and their sales by coming out with this lower cost Model Y at the same time. But of course, battery efficiency is a massive bonus as well. Nearly a 20% savings on a battery pack is a huge deal. In fact, I now raise my 2021 sales estimate to closer to 1 million vehicles just due to this change, since batteries have been the main restriction on making these vehicles. So, did we blow it? Should we have waited? In our particular case, I would say we made the right decision, even though the monetary differences are definitely painful. What I truly want, and what might never come now, or it might get here next week, who knows, is a long-range single-motor Model Y version, say for around $45,500, splitting the difference between the standard range and the long-range dual-motor models. With about a 350-mile range, I'd take the slower acceleration and call that a good trade for a savings of maybe $50 or $60 per month in payments. If that model had come out yesterday, I'd be sad. Given what we will use our car for, however, I feel like we still would have made the same decision versus the standard range. But that decision would have been a lot harder than it was last month. So what do you think? Did you buy a new Tesla recently? Are you regretting that decision now? Did you plan to buy a new Tesla soon or have one on order? Are you going to change your order now? And if you thought you couldn't buy a Tesla before, does this amount of money reduction change your mind about that? Will you be ordering one now? I'm really interested in what you all have to say about this, especially if this new model changes what you order and even makes it possible for you to order one now. Definitely let me know in the comments. Thanks. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it informative and thought-provoking. I certainly did writing it, so I hope it was for you too. If you did enjoy it, definitely make sure you like and subscribe. And in the meantime, ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.